before implementing a dashboard solution at Trafford College, just to set the scene, what were you currently doing with the data and how were you managing things then?
Well, I think it's fair to say, and I'll probably take us back to the start of 2015, and we were quite unsophisticated in our use of data. So where we were was we were very good at reporting on things like funding and learning numbers. When it came to things like curriculum performance, particularly around things like retention, achievement, etc., we were quite unsophisticated. The other issue we had was we were heavily reliant on a very small number of people in MIS to produce reports. We had a reporting system which was done localized. It wasn't using any software solution. We got those reports regularly at leadership team meetings, but it was quite responsive, but it wasn't proactive or intuitive. And our biggest issue was if we wanted anything, we had to ask and we had to rely on a very small number of people within that department to provide us with the data we were requesting. And if that person was off sick or there were other priorities, then it became really difficult. So in a nutshell, where we were was we didn't have at the touch of our fingers data we needed in real time to help inform decisions about where are we now and what do we need to do and what action do we need to take. There were a number of things that kind of brought things to a sort of head in the college in early 2015. I'd say at that point we were an outstanding college in terms of our Ofsted rating, and we had a very simplistic approach to curriculum performance in the sense that at that time, what were people bothered about? What's your attendance rates on your course? Are people remaining on course in terms of your retention, and are they passing a qualification? And as I said, alongside the learning numbers and the funding, those are really just the things that we looked at. And then a number of things happened that really made us sort of change our views and made us understand we needed a more sophisticated data system to access. One of those was the complexity around study programs. So all of a sudden, the data and accountability agenda shifted from success rates and more to, it's not just about getting a core qualification, it's about maths and English, about maths and English high grades. Progress started to become much more of a focus through the new headline performance measures. And we thought, hang on a minute, we don't have a handle on how we're performing against a range of different measures. So that was one issue. The second issue we had was our friends from Ofsted came in, and we came out okay. We got a 2, but going from an outstanding college that was, regarded as one of the best in the sector, to a good and, in the interests of transparency, it was a good bordering on requires improvement. I think we snuck through by the skin of our teeth, and that was a sort of very sobering moment where we thought, hang on a minute, complacency has arguably snuck into the college and we need to up our game. And the third thing was, and it wasn't the result of the Ofsted inspection, it just coincided at the same time, was we undertook a significant restructure of the college, including a complete change of the middle management tier. And one of the things we wanted to be able to do was to put more ownership and more accountability on people lower down the organisation to understand exactly where they were in terms of their performance, the data for their areas, and what was needed to do to fix it.
And in terms of middle managers and access to information at that point, sort of how were they collating that information? Were they just doing it on ad hoc request to MIS team, or were there other functions in place?
It was very reactive. So in terms of middle managers, the data they got was what we as a leadership team sent out, which was what we received from MIS. So weekly, we would send them out reports on attendance, on retention, on applications, and we used to have this very unsophisticated predicted achievement thing where we would just send them a spreadsheet of the pro-achieved data set, and we'd say, this is how many bodies you've got in a class, just tell us how many you're going to pass it. So it was really, as I said, it was really unsophisticated, but they were reliant on us giving them the data. And occasionally there were things that they wanted to know. They had their own ad hoc requests, and because, as I mentioned, there was just a very small number of people in MIS with the relevant skills, it was really down to the luck of the draw of, was that possible at that time, or were there other priorities that meant people's requests were sort of put on the back of the queue.
Yeah, perfect. And then so following, just taking us on the journey a little bit, meeting us at the AOC, in terms of sort of the next steps in that decision-making process, because there's lots of products, there's lots of ways you can get information out to people, sort of what was the process internally from that point onwards to make the decision?
I think the first thing, obviously, was we invited Dynistics in to demonstrate the product. And obviously when you've got converts on a leadership team, then it becomes quite easy to implement. I think one of the key hurdles we needed to get over was convincing the principal to make the investment. There are other products out there. We did look at some others, so we use, as an example, Pro Solution, and they had at the time they were developing their own dashboard product, but it was quite, embryonic, it hadn't developed. And we just thought, look, if we want to be serious about this, if we want to make sure we've got the right data at the right time, and as I said, it was also an investment in our middle managers to give them something that could help, inform their decision making and their performance. Then we just thought we need to go with this. So once we'd been able to demonstrate the sort of viability of the product and how good it was, it became quite an easy sell to the SMT. One of the unforeseen things we came across, and for those of you who haven't implemented this kind of solution, be wary of this, because it was something I never anticipated happening. The resistance came from the MIS department.
Yeah.
Because again, being transparent, I think it's fair to say this because people, have moved on, etc., into different roles. The worry at the time was, does that mean people's jobs are at risk? Because you're bringing in a dashboard solution, you therefore don't need somebody who is sat there who can respond to requests whenever they come in. So there was a real reluctance from parts of MIS to engage with it, which we didn't anticipate. We thought, this is great, this will help them as well, and that was interesting.
Okay. And then so once the decision was made to go with the project, talk to us more about sort of almost pre-implementation, so deciding on the areas that you were going to have as KPIs, sort of that phase one and what that meant for you.
Yeah, I think first of all it was, just focusing on the bread and butter and the basics of the running of an FE college. Yeah. What do we need to know? We need to know what the application system is looking like in terms of learner numbers, because if we don't have learner numbers, we don't have a college. So it was about getting better access to applications, so we could quickly spot trends better than we had done previously. And then it was focusing on things like attendance was absolutely key, retention through a sort of bespoke Pro Achieve dashboard. We then started looking at HR areas such as utilisation. We were looking at things like unmarked registers. So there was a whole range of things that we very quickly were able to get into a dashboard solution, but gave us that information very, very timely. Good. The key thing for us was around making sure we got the filterable options correct. So it wasn't so much the actual design of it, it was, can we really drill down into the data set and see where we've got potential areas of concern. So for an example, on attendance, very, very quickly, what we were able to do using the solution was not just look at attendance for all 16 to 18 year olds, we could really drill down. What's the attendance of our looked after children? What about students with educational healthcare plan? What about those students with high needs? What about students with declared mental health need? And we were very quickly able to drill down into those different categories of students and see, did we have any kind of gaps that we needed to address? And of course, what the dashboard would show us was exactly in which areas of the curriculum we would have any of those problems. In terms of the middle managers, because that was the initial group of people we ran the products with, so we went with a 30 license solution, which meant we could give access to all the SMT and middle managers. I'll come on to later in terms of what we've just done around spreading that out, but at the time it was middle managers. We, as you said, we started it on an away day, and the away day was really immediately sort of post restructure. It was working with middle managers to find out what's working and what isn't working in the new structure, and how can we better understand your needs and challenges. And part of that was, you don't have access to data at the touch of a button, and this is a solution we're bringing in. So Dynistics came in and did a pitch, and then really the way we embedded it was in every single meeting we had with middle managers around performance, the dashboard would drive the conversation. So the dashboard would be on the screen behind me, the data set would be there, and whatever it was we were looking at, whether it be attendance, retention, their staff utilisation, their applications position, we would use a dashboard to drive those conversations. Interestingly, what you do get is a situation where people say, well, the data's wrong. And actually, in some cases it was, but the benefit of the system is it drives the right conversation then, because you're then looking at, well, why is that data wrong? why do you not believe that attendance data is correct? On the dashboard, for example, what you could see very clearly was the list of all the learners who were impacting on the data percentage. And then you could have the conversation of, well, these people have actually withdrawn or are in the process of withdrawal and the withdrawal's not quite gone through yet. So we could get them off the data very, very quickly. So you were having the right conversation of what is the actual attendance? Is it an issue? Is it not? What do we need to do to fix it? And using the dashboard helped drive conversations about incorrect data. Before that, obviously, because things were sort of more invisible and they didn't have access to that data at the touch of a button and all the detail behind it, the conversation was on a spreadsheet, it says your attendance is 80%, that's not good enough. And then you end up in this discussion of, well, that data can't be right, but then at the touch of a button, you haven't got all the stuff to support that and have that conversation. So that's what we did to really sort of drive it forwards with the middle managers. And then what gets interesting, but you sometimes maybe have to guard against this, is then you get your principal who they have access to the dashboard, and again it could drive interesting conversations if they're just sort of looking through some data and they see, right, so why a level 1 hair and beauty student's not attended this week, and they pick up the phone and get the head of hair and beauty on the line and let's have that conversation. And actually, that's probably not a bad thing, because yes, people sort of principals and people of my level should be very strategic, but I also believe you've got to have your handle on the detail, because if you haven't, then you can't drive improvements in your organisation. So that's the sort of way we sort of embedded it, and it sort of got involved in that sort of performance culture.
So what are the mechanics to accessing Dynistics at your college?
We have it on the homepage of the intranet. We just have it at the click of a button on there. You log on to the intranet, straight away you'll see a tile for Dynistics and you go into that. Senior managers have access to the entire data set, and then what will happen with middle managers is it will just bring up the data for their curriculum area. So obviously all the provision is coded to a particular area and it just feeds through the information for their particular department. I think probably the most immediate benefit was around maths and English attendance. So as I said earlier, one of the things that sort of drove us to Dynistics was because curriculum performance was becoming more complex in terms of what we had to deliver and what we were judged against. So what it really helped was it helped us get a handle very, very quickly on maths and English attendance. It helped us get a handle very quickly where the attendance wasn't accurate, because many colleagues in the room who deliver maths and English as part of study programs will know, particularly in those first few weeks of term, you have an awful lot of churn in the system where people are changing classes, they're on the wrong register, they follow their mate rather than going to the class that they're meant to do, they suddenly turn up with their qualification and say, I told you after all I didn't need to do it. And so there's so much kind of volatility in maths and English in the first few weeks that what it enabled to do was very quickly get a handle on, well, first of all, have we got everybody attending in the right class? Have we got people who are now exempt, and are they still showing in the data so we can get them out? We had lots of people on duplicate registers, and on the data you could immediately spot that. So it enabled us to clean up the maths and English attendance really, really quickly, and then have the right conversations of, right, let's see now who are the people who are meant to be attending, who are not, and we need to immediately get on in terms of action to either start attending or there's a consequence. We significantly improved high grade achievement, progress, attendance, pretty much all the measures on maths and English over the 3 years of using Dynistics. It's not just because of Dynistics, but it enables you to have the right conversations at the start and then focus on where you need to really target your efforts. So that was a key improvement. There are other curriculum areas where during the Ofsted inspection of 2015, because during that framework it was still on the old money of curriculum or subject area as opposed to types of provision, and we had some areas that came out really bad, which is why our result was sort of on the cuff. So business studies was graded a 3, but on a bad day would have been a 4. Health and social care was the same, and we particularly targeted on those areas around using the data, and that enabled us to have a much better handle on what was happening in those areas. Let's have a look at the attendance, let's have a look at the retention, let's look at the progress of the students against target grades. And again, I wouldn't say it just improved because of Dynistics, but it enabled us to have a better handle on what was happening. Where do I start with Stockport College? So we We merged with Stockport College officially at Easter, which I think many people in the room will know. It was a grade 4 college coming on board with ourselves. MIS was a key issue for the organisation because there was a kind of lack of trust in data in the college, particularly at a governance level. So there was a real issue where governors had felt previously they hadn't had access to accurate data, timely data. Things had been presented to them in a sort of more rosy way than they really were, was what they felt, you know. So we had a real challenge from the start in terms of we had an organisation where data had been a problem, and there was a lack of trust, you know, right the way from governance in terms of the accuracy of it. One of the issues we had was we were both on the same systems. We both used Pro Solution, both used the full Compass suite of, you know, Pro Monitor, etc., etc. And that lulled us into a false sense of security, which is actually is going to be just dead easy. So, you know, get through the merger, and then very, very rapidly we'll be able to put the two systems together. Totally not true, and didn't happen, which we're still only now beginning to get through, partway through an academic year. One of the problems was the colleges used the two systems very differently. So the way Trafford College uses Pro Monitor and how it sets it up is very different to the way Stockport College sets up Pro Monitor. We also had big issues, particularly at sort of middle management level, in terms of the link between the two colleges, because what we decided to do, and again, this is a big learning curve and something for you to reflect on if you're about to merge, is we decided not to pull the two systems together. We decided to run them as separate, and our original intention was at October half term we were going to put the two together. But the issue was, because we kept two separate systems and we thought, well, it's the same product, so we'll be okay. When we had a sort of middle management restructure, we had middle managers who were responsible for curriculum across both Trafford and Stockport. And what happened was, for example, if you were a middle manager who was a previous Trafford College middle manager and you went over to Stockport and went on their system, you couldn't have access to anything. You were going to Pro Monitor and you couldn't find anything, you couldn't find your class lists, you couldn't find any data about students, etc. And it took us a long time because we had to fix each and every one of those problems individually. It wasn't something we could just fix wholesale. So as a result of that, because we had so many issues with the data and that kind of nervousness over bringing the two sets together, we're actually running them separate now till the end of the academic year, because we thought the danger is we bring the two systems together over October half term. What if we lose stuff? What if data goes missing, etc.? So we've just about managed to get to a position now where we're operating effectively on two different Pro Solutions, and then it's something we need to think about over the summer. So if you're in that position and you've got the time to plan it and integrate, then, you know, do it in a timely way is what I would say, and you know, take the time to do it properly, because we just thought it'd be dead easy, and it wasn't at all. So the idea is we'll run on the two systems until the end of the academic year, and then over the summer we will merge it into one Pro Solution. But this is one of the great things about Dynistics. At the moment, it's operating through a merged college because it's just pulling in the two data sets. So it's actually not a disadvantage for us that we've kept the two systems separate. And actually, that would have been more of an issue if we would have kept a more sort of localised ad hoc reporting system, because now it's just all feeding into the same dashboard. We're actually at the point now, it's taken us a while, but we're at the point now where we feel in a pretty good place.
And in terms of culture towards data and the way that things are done at different colleges, do you think that can impact certain attitudes towards reporting, how you do things, certain standards?
No, I mean, I think, to be fair, I think the two colleges have a very similar culture in terms of how they've tried to use data to improve things. So the problem at Stockport was the reliability of the data, and obviously a more rosy picture than it actually was. And the interesting thing is, I mean, we obviously got involved with Stockport far prior to the actual merger. I started over there unofficially as an observer when they had the last Ofsted grade 4 in January, and even though we didn't merge till Easter, operated over there in an interim capacity to get us ready. And there were things they were doing that we learnt a lot from. You know, there were things they were doing, particularly around sort of progress, for example, which is obviously a key issue for Ofsted.
Yep.
And I think because of the situation they were in, they had to move sort of quicker and further with it. But there was stuff they were doing with the data that we thought this is really good, and we can learn from that in bringing the two organisations and cultures together. We've pretty much taken the whole Dynistics solution back to square one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we had one at Trafford that worked for us, but one of the things we've learned in trying to impose systems on another college is it doesn't work, etc. So let's just take a step back and start from the beginning and rebuild all the dashboards from scratch effectively. And what we've done is basically, because of the data issues we've had, it's been a sort of one step at a time. So what we've focused on is let's get accurate data on learner numbers and funding. Let's then get accurate data on attendance for all aspects of study programmes and for adults, apprentices, HE, etc. We've now got a really good, what I believe is a really good workable dashboard on student progress. So we can immediately see where every student is in the college against their target grade. And one of the other things we've just done on that, literally last week, which is something we didn't have before, is then focused it on top end students. Because one of the issues for both colleges was around you do very well with your students in the middle and you do pretty well with students who are underperforming, but you're top end, you're gifted and talented. So we've introduced something new around that. We're just about to launch the Pro Achieve dashboard, because obviously it's only now you really start looking at retention when you're past the 42nd day. So we're rebuilding it step by step. Some of the key things we're going to introduce. So first of all, we've taken a decision to go enterprise-wide, which means every member of staff in the organisation will ultimately have access to it. At the moment, it is just limited to SMT and middle managers, just right whilst we get the usability and the accuracy right, because the danger is if you do it across the whole organisation and they don't believe the data is accurate, then there's a danger people switch off and say, well, I'm not going to go onto that, I'm not going to log onto it and use it because it's not right. So once we're comfortable with the usability and the accuracy, then we're going to go enterprise-wide of it. One of the key developments we're doing, and this might sound controversial or it might not, is at a lecturer level, we're introducing a lecturer KPI dashboard. So one of the sort of journeys we've gone in the college, which I think many other colleges have done, is in terms of lecturer performance, is to say, isn't it absolutely madness that you judge their performance on observation process, which is very subjective. It's often once a year, and what does that really tell you? And our belief is you should judge people's performance on outcomes. That's not to say there isn't a role for observations, that's not to say there isn't a role for things like learning walks, but ultimately it's around, for us, are your students attending? Are they on programme? Are they achieving what they are capable of, if not better? And what's their satisfaction? What are the students saying? Which is obviously something that's quite driven in HE at the moment. Is becoming more prevalent in FE. So ultimately, where we will get to is a situation where, as a lecturer, you can go on and see the performance of your students for everything that you teach. So regardless of whether you're responsible for a particular programme or you just teach a unit on one BTEC course, you will be able to see what's my student attendance, what's the overall retention, what's the progress, the achievement and their satisfaction. And I think that will help us drive improvements even further. I think first and foremost it's being able to, to convince an organisation as to why do you need the solution, and why that would be better for any sort of system you might already have in-house. My view on Dynistics is, it's not the cheapest solution, but it's the best. So for me, and where I was at the time 3 years ago, it was if we were really serious about data, if we were really serious about improving the performance of the college, and if we were really serious about giving middle managers the tool to do their job properly, then you need to go with the right solution, and not just do a half-hearted something that you can do very, very cheaply. So, but you've got to convince people that it's the right thing to go, because it is an investment, but I believe it's a very good investment. I think the second thing is, it's about using the tool to have the right conversations, because it did take us a while to get over that thing of, well, this data coming through on this dashboard system, it's not accurate. Yeah, well, that's fine, but that's why we're doing this, because then we can get to the accuracy of it. And that's one of the key benefits of it, because you can really get to the heart of why is it not accurate, what do we need to change, and then what are the key things that are accurate that we need to address. And for those people who are, I'll just reiterate this, for those people who are about to go through a merger, do not be complacent over your systems, especially if you think, well, they're using the same system as us, it's going to be a relatively easy fix to bring it together. It's absolutely not, because every college uses their systems differently, and they might have the same software solution.
Yep.
You know, they might be using Tribal or they might be using Pro Solution or whatever, but everybody uses it very, very differently. So it's just, do not underestimate the scale and the sort of time demands on doing that accurately and successfully.
What does the future of Trafford College look like? Just a summary, I mean, moving away from data and things now, just holistically.
I think at the moment that the future of Trafford College is very much the future of Stockport College, and you know, what can we do to improve Stockport College? I think there's been some really positive signs. So Stockport College was graded as inadequate in January 2018. We just got to the outcomes, obviously unvalidated till the QAR and the DFE data's out, but there's been significant improvement in a short space of time, both from a legacy of the outgoing old regime who made a lot of good changes, and ourselves coming in. But our future is very simple. You know, get Stockport College back to where it should be, because at one point it was a college that was regarded as an outstanding institution, and we need to get it back to that point and maintaining the reputation of Trafford, and I'm sure Dynistics will help us do that.